Hey everyone, and welcome back to Sip and Talk. I'm Joe, and ready to dive into some fascinating information with you today.
And I'm Sunny, here to navigate this deep dive and keep us on course.
That's right, folks. I was actually,
Tell me about it.
getting ready to come in here and record.
Yeah.
And I totally got sidetracked.
What happened?
I was making coffee, and then I just kind of wandered off and started doing something else.
Oh, yeah, I know that feeling.
Completely forgot why I was in the kitchen in the first place.
So relatable. I think we've all been there.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But you know what? It turns out there's a whole bunch of scientific research on why we get distracted.
Really?
Yeah. It's not just, us being spacey. It's actually a thing.
That's fascinating because it feels like such a modern problem, right, with our phones and everything.
I know, right? It's like everything's vying for our attention.
Yeah, but it's actually not a new problem at all.
Oh, really?
Even back in the day, people were getting distracted by, shiny objects or a bird flying by.
Or conversation. That's so interesting.
So distraction is basically anything that takes our attention away from what we're trying to focus on.
So it's like our brains are trying to do one thing.
Yeah.
And then something else comes along and it's like, hey, look over here.
Exactly. And it can really mess with our ability to process information.
Which is probably why I can never remember why I walked into a room.
Well, there you go.
Mystery solved.
So these distractions come from two main places, internal and external.
Okay, so internal, that would be like if you're hungry.
Yep.
Or like if you're tired or stressed.
Absolutely. All those things can totally derail your focus.
Yeah, because it's coming from inside of you, so you can't really escape it.
Right. And then you have external distractions.
Which would be like?
All the stuff around us that's competing for our attention.
Okay, so that's the more obvious stuff, right?
Yeah, like your phone buzzing.
Social media, the TV.
All that good stuff.
Yeah, and that's definitely gotten worse in the digital age, right?
Oh, absolutely. We're constantly bombarded with information.
I know, it's like my phone is a distraction machine.
Well, and there's this crazy study from Microsoft that found that the average human attention span is now just 8 seconds.
8 seconds.
8 seconds.
Are you serious? What can you even do in 8 seconds?
Barely anything.
It's like snap your fingers a couple times.
I mean, that's it.
And that's it. That's our attention span.
Which, to put that into perspective,
please do.
A goldfish supposedly has an attention span of 9 seconds.
Wait, so you're telling me I'm less focused than a goldfish?
Well, I mean,
my ego is bruised.
Science is science.
Ouch. Okay, but why, though? Why are we so easily distracted?
Well, our brains are actually wired to seek out new information. Every time we see or hear something new, our reward system kicks in.
Okay.
And it releases dopamine, which makes us feel good.
Oh, dopamine, the pleasure chemical.
Exactly. So we're constantly chasing that next dopamine hit. And the digital world makes it so easy to get those hits.
Oh, yeah, because it's like every notification, every
little thing
gives us a little burst of dopamine.
And it's addictive.
No wonder I can't resist clicking on those. You won't believe what happens next headlines.
Right. It's like our brains are trained to crave that novelty.
Okay, so that explains the whole goldfish thing.
Yeah, and it also explains why multitasking is such a problem.
Because we think we're being productive, but we're actually just making things worse.
Exactly, because we're constantly switching our attention back and forth, and it takes a toll.
Okay, so are we just doomed to become a society of scatterbrained goldfish just flitting from one distraction to the next?
Well, not necessarily.
Okay, good.
There is hope.
Okay.
But before we get into solutions, I think it's helpful to understand the science a little bit better.
All right, let's do it.
So there's this researcher named Mark.
Okay.
And he has spent years studying attention.
All right, Mark the attention guru.
Yeah. And he's done some really interesting work observing how people work in offices.
Okay, so he's out in the field watching people.
Exactly. And one of his findings was that the average time people spend on one screen before switching to another has decreased dramatically.
So we used to be able to focus on one thing for longer.
Right. It used to be a couple of minutes.
Okay.
But now it's less than a minute.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of switching.
It's a lot.
I can't even imagine trying to get anything done with that level of distraction.
Well, and it gets worse because even when people are trying to focus on a single task, they're often interrupted by something else.
So it's like a double whammy.
Exactly.
You're switching between tasks, and then you're getting interrupted even when you try to focus.
And all of that switching and interrupting it takes a toll on our productivity.
I could bet.
Mark's research actually shows that multitasking can decrease productivity by as much as 40%.
40%? That's huge.
It is.
Okay, I'm convinced multitasking is the enemy of focus.
Yeah.
But what can we do about it? Is there any hope for us attention-challenged folks out there?
Absolutely. Mark actually came up with this really helpful framework for understanding and managing our attention better.
Okay, I'm listening.
He calls it the 4 categories of attention.
Okay, 4 categories, lay them on me.
So the first one is boredom.
Boredom, okay.
You know, like when you're flipping through TV channels?
Yeah.
Not really interested in anything, just kind of zoning out.
Oh, yeah, I've been there.
That's boredom, low difficulty, low focus.
Got it.
And then there's frustrated.
Okay.
So imagine you're stuck on a really challenging problem and you just can't seem to crack it.
I know that feeling all too well.
Right. You're frustrated. You're struggling to concentrate. That's frustrated, high difficulty, low focus.
Makes sense. So those are 2 of the categories.
2 down, 2 to go.
Okay, bring on the other 2.
Okay, so we've got 2 more categories of attention to go. Remember we talked about boredom and frustrated?
Right, like when you're just kind of zoning out or when you're totally stuck on something and can't focus?
Exactly. So the third category is called rote. So think about those times when you're doing something that's pretty easy, but it still requires like a little bit of focus.
Rote, like maybe scrolling through social media or like playing a simple game on your phone.
Yeah, exactly. You're engaged, but it's not super mentally challenging.
Right. It's not like you're solving complex equations or writing a novel.
Exactly. And honestly, we all need a little bit of rote in our lives. It can be a good way to unwind and de-stress.
Oh, for sure. I love a good scroll through Instagram.
But the problem is when rote starts to take over.
Yeah.
You know, when we're spending way too much time on those low difficulty, low focus activities.
Yeah, that's when it becomes a problem, like when you fall into the scroll hole and emerge hours later. Like, what just happened?
Exactly. But then there's the 4th category, and this is the one we want to aim for as much as possible.
Okay, lay it on me.
Focus.
Focus. Ah, yes, the holy grail.
This is when you're totally absorbed in something that's challenging and mentally stimulating.
Like being in the flow state, you know, when you're just totally in the zone and time flies by.
Think about those times when you're working on a project you're really passionate about, or you're reading a book that just completely captivates you. You're fully present, engaged, and you're actually making progress.
Okay, I definitely need more of that focus in my life.
Yeah.
But how do we actually get there, especially with all these distractions battling for our attention?
Well, one of Mark's suggestions is to identify our peak focus times.
Peak focus times, what's that?
These are like these magical windows of time when our brains are naturally more alert and focused.
Are you saying there are actually times of day when I'm more likely to be like a focused superstar?
For a lot of people, these peak focus times occur around 11 a.m. or 4 p.m.
Oh, interesting. So like mid-morning and late afternoon.
Yeah, but everyone's a little bit different. It can depend on your individual chronotype.
Chronotype, hold on, you mentioned that earlier. Could you remind me what that is?
Sure. So chronotype basically refers to your natural sleep-wake cycle, like your body's internal clock.
Okay, so like whether you're a morning person or a night owl.
Exactly. And your chronotype can influence when your peak focus times are.
So if you're a night owl, you might be most productive in the evening.
Exactly.
And if you're an early bird, you're probably at your best in the morning.
Makes sense, right?
It does. So the key is to figure out your chronotype and then schedule your most demanding tasks during those peak focus times.
Precisely. It's all about working with your natural rhythms, not against them.
Okay, I'm totally on board with that. But what about all those external distractions? You know, the ones that are constantly pinging and buzzing and tempting us away from our focused work.
Right. Those can be tough.
Yeah.
It's not about eliminating distractions entirely, but managing them strategically. One simple but effective technique is to just turn off unnecessary notifications.
Yeah, that makes sense because every time your phone pings or buzzes, it's like, hey, look at me, look at me.
And it totally breaks your focus. Do you really need to know every time someone likes your Instagram post or comments on your Facebook status?
Probably not, especially not when I'm trying to concentrate.
Right, so turning off notifications, that's one strategy. What else?
What else?
Another great tool is time boxing.
Time boxing.
Instead of letting email and social media rule your day, you can allocate specific blocks of time for checking them.
So like literally blocking off time in your calendar.
Exactly. Like, okay, from 3 to 3:30 p.m., it's email time. And then from 3:30 to 4 p.m., I can check social media.
Oh, I like that it's like setting boundaries for your distractions.
Exactly. It's about taking control of your time instead of letting distractions dictate your schedule.
That's so smart. I need to try that. But okay, real talk. Sometimes those distractions are so tempting. It's like they have a mind of their own and just pull you in.
Oh, I totally get it. We've all been there, and that's where those hooks that Mark talked about can come in handy.
Right, the hooks what were those again?
So think of hooks as like little nudges or prompts that help you break free from the distraction vortex. They're basically strategies to make it harder to give in to those tempting distractions.
Okay, give me some examples.
Okay, well, one simple one is to physically place your phone out of reach while you're working.
Like put in a drawer or something.
Exactly, so you have to like consciously get up and move to check it, which creates a moment of disruption and helps you become more aware of your behavior.
Ooh, I like that it's like putting temptation out of sight, out of mind.
Another effective hook is to schedule something immediately after your designated road time. So let's say you decide to allow yourself 15 minutes of social media scrolling at 3 p.m. Schedule a work call or a meeting right after that.
Ooh, that's smart, because then you have a built-in reason to stop scrolling and switch gears.
Exactly. Your future self is holding you accountable.
I love it. So hooks are all about making it harder to give in to distraction.
Precisely. And the more you practice using these hooks, the easier it becomes to manage your attention and stay focused.
This is giving me so much hope.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm finally starting to understand how to tame this beast of distraction.
Oh.
Are there any other secret weapons in this focus arsenal?
Absolutely. One often overlooked but incredibly powerful tool is mindfulness.
Mindfulness, okay.
Practices like meditation can actually help rewire your brain to become more focused and less reactive to distractions.
Wait, are you telling me that just sitting and focusing on my breath can actually make me better at focusing in everyday life?
It might sound too simple to be true, but research has shown that even short periods of daily meditation can have significant benefits for attention and concentration.
Okay, I'm willing to try anything at this point. Meditation hooks, time boxing. I'm feeling empowered to build my own focus fortress.
That's the spirit. Remember, regaining control over your attention is a journey, not a destination. We're not aiming for perfection, but progress.
Progress over perfection. I like that. But speaking of journeys, I think it's time for us to wrap up our deep dive into distraction, share some final thoughts.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
All right. And, we've been talking all about distraction. And,
Yeah, all the things that are vying for our attention.
and I feel like, honestly, I've learned so much. Like those hooks, right? We were talking about those before the break.
Those are game changers.
I'm telling you, game changer.
Little things can make a big difference.
They really can. And I'm also really intrigued by this whole, mindfulness thing.
Yeah, meditation is pretty powerful.
Like, I never really thought about it as a way to improve focus, but
It really works.
it makes sense.
All about training your brain.
Yeah. So maybe I'll finally achieve that, Zen-like focus I've always dreamed of.
Well, it takes practice, but even a few minutes a day can help.
Okay, small steps.
Small steps.
So before we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
let's recap some of the key takeaways for our listeners.
Okay.
I think the biggest one is that distraction is a real problem.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just us.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere, and it's getting worse with, all the technology and everything.
Absolutely.
But the good news is
There's hope.
there's hope we're not doomed.
We can fight back.
We can fight back.
Yeah.
There are things we can do to improve our focus.
Yeah, like figuring out our peak focus times,
Right.
managing those digital distractions.
Turning off notifications, using those hooks,
All those strategies can make a big difference.
and mindfulness.
Yeah, forget mindfulness.
Right? Who knew that just sitting and breathing could be so powerful?
It's pretty amazing.
It really is.
And the thing is, it's not about being perfectly focused all the time.
No.
It's about progress, not perfection.
I love that progress over perfection.
Yeah, small changes can add up over time.
They really can.
So what's one small change you can make today to be a little more focused?
Ooh, that's a good question for our listeners to ponder.
Yeah, think about it.
All right, well, that brings us to the end of another deep dive.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everybody. We hope you learned something new and maybe even got some ideas for how to be a little less distracted in your own lives.
Until next time, stay curious.
So stay focused.